Good evening, brethren. This is Big Judah coming to you guys from California. Before I begin, give all praises to the Most High, Yahweh. Acknowledgement to the earthly mother, who is wisdom, who is the Holy Spirit. Acknowledgement to Yahweh Shai. I pray that the Most High blesses this lesson today and gives us more knowledge and understanding of the events of the past in order to understand the events that are currently happening on the earth, so we may get a much better understanding of the events that are soon to come on the earth. The more I read and the more I study, the more you realize you don't know, and the more you realize how deep this rabbit hole really goes. The more books that the Most High blesses us with, the more understanding that He gives us through the Holy Spirit, you just realize that there's all these people, all these other nations that are complicit with keeping us at the bottom. Many know exactly who we are. Many know exactly who our Father is. But since they've taken the bag and made their covenant with the devil, there's no going back. So even though they see us rising, they see the truth starting to permeate the earth, many don't have the option of switching teams at this late hour. And that's one thing I used to always think about, like, with all this truth, you would think that more people would be excited and want to gravitate to the truth. But the more that we get this understanding, the more we realize that they can't. The Most High doesn't want them. And the Most High doesn't leave the door open for many to be able to get this truth. And that's why I think we really need to thank the Most High when He is calling us and He has opened up our understanding. That means that we're a very special group of people that have been blessed to be able to accept the Most High's truth. And it's just, it's overwhelming at times. Sometimes there's just so much information, and I wanted to make sure to take a little bit of time to thank the people who've been sharing with me information in the emails. As I told you guys before, I have the P.O. box all set up, and I got blessed with some books from a lady, a sister from in Texas. Thank you for sending me those books with the 103 facts about the Black Native Americans and two other books that I've been checking out. And definitely other people have been blessing me with monetary donations and things like that, so I can continue to do this work and purchase other materials and try to upgrade other things, so we can definitely get this information and read it, get it together, have the Most High put it together in order to be able to bring it to the nation. And I want to thank the family, because without you, it will be very difficult to do the things that I'm doing. And really, it takes the whole nation. And it's beautiful to see how the nation is stepping up and being supportive of this ministry. And I can't do it by myself. I need the nation to help me. And that's the way it's been set up. Many bless me with donations, but also many also bless me with information. Many bless me with books. And now that we actually have the P.O. box, you can send me information. A lot of people wanted to send me books and other things as well. So I just set that up, and it's up and running and everything else. And I'll leave the address in the description box. But like I said, then I can actually help other brethren who are helping me as well. And we can all help each other to, like I said, get this information out, get this truth to the four corners so that we can go home. Ultimately, that's the whole goal. The more that we help each other out, the quicker we can go home, the quicker we can be restored. And I think that's the goal of everyone. The way that things are going, I can't see us being here continuing this reality for much longer. The way that the Most High is bringing His nation up while bringing the other nations down, you can just see the Most High is at work. I was listening to a video from AMTV, and they're still talking about they're saying yes, the Deutsche Bank filed bankruptcy, and some people are saying no. The fact that a bank of that size felt it even necessary to even respond to claims of its being in bankruptcy is saying a lot. And they're just talking about how China just moved to make their currency the pretty much the petro yuan, or they're buying oil with the yuan now and not the dollar. And we know that the United States has gone to war pretty much any time that the petrodollar has been threatened. But we understand that is not necessarily biblical prophecy. The trigger is the fact that the Most High is calling back His people. As He calls us back, as we get blessed with more knowledge and understanding, the other nations are going to crumble. And that's exactly what we're seeing. Elder Al brought out some information in the Doctrine and Covenants last night, and I'm going to leave the link in the description box for you guys to check that out. Around the 40-minute mark, he really gets into some information that was actually mind-blowing. But the thing is that it just talks about how the other nations have gotten our records and tampered with them. So it's talked about that in Doctrines and Covenants, but it also happened over there in the so-called Middle East. And I'll read from that too, from the Lost Scriptures book, how they tampered with the Scriptures. And then if you later on try to correct what they tampered with, they say that you're going off. They say that these are the perfect Scriptures, the Word of God, the perfect Word of God, and it's never been tampered with. And if we change anything, we're the ones going off. It's just a diabolical plan by the enemy. What we're going to get into this evening, though, is I'm going to show you guys how the priests of Mahan, or the priests of the Catholic Church, are going to admit to you tonight that they have been manipulating events for over 2,000 years. The fact that one of their own priests and one of their own people admits to this lets you know that this group, this church, is the abominable church that has been manipulating everything from behind the scenes. So as we still have a lot of people still talking about how America is Babylon and America, everyone's made an agreement with America, that's the way the devil's always set it up. He's always set it up so that every other nation can be the bad guy, can be the fall guy. And no one ever really suspects the fact that the abominable church is the one behind everything, manipulating all the events. And that's what we're going to be getting into today. So like I said, we know how the priests of Mahan works, how they copy. They've been wanting to be like the Most High's people this entire time. And they just copy everything that our people do and try to act like it's theirs. Same thing right here. Same thing, nothing new. You're going to see a lot of things that have been happening, repetitiously, again and again and again. We're going to revisit real quick here to start 1 Nephi 13, 1 through 9. And it came to pass that the angel spake unto me, saying, Look. And I looked and beheld many nations and kingdoms. And the angel said unto me, What beholdest thou? And I said, I behold many nations and kingdoms. And he said unto me, These are the nations and kingdoms of the Gentiles. All right. And it came to pass that I saw among the nations of the Gentiles the formation of a great church. What we have to get in the habit of doing is separating the Gentile nations and the abominable church. Many people think that they're synonymous, but they aren't necessarily. When it says that this church is among these nations, That's a really important word there. I saw among the nations. That means in the company of. So you got the Gentile nations, and then you have this abominable church. And many people see them as one and the same, but they're not necessarily, okay? All right, let's continue. And the angel said unto me, behold, the formation of a church, which is most abominable above all other churches, which slayeth the saints of the Most High, yea, and tortureth them, and bindeth them down, and yoketh them with a yoke of iron, and bringeth them down into captivity. We have to go, remember now, going back to Cain and Abel. There weren't necessarily a whole bunch of nations right here at this time. We had two brothers, one represented by, of the Most High, and one of Satan. And the whole thing here was that Cain wanted to kill or destroy Abel. He wanted to be the priest. So, and so that's the whole thing with this church here, is what they're doing to the saints of the Most High. They want to torture them, bind them down, and put them in slavery. That's the whole main aim here of this church. Not necessarily of all the Gentile nations, but that's really the aim of this abominable church. It says, and it came to pass that I beheld this great and abominable church, and I saw the devil, that he was the founder of it. And I also saw gold and silver and silks and scarlets and fine twined linen and all manner of precious clothing. And I saw many harlots. So this church here wants money, silver. It wants the finer things. Okay? And many harlots, it's got many daughters, many different religions. We all know this. Okay? And the angel spake unto me, saying, behold, the gold and the silver and the silks and the scarlets and the fine twined linen and the precious clothing and the harlots are the desires of this great and abominable church. So that's what this church wants. It wants all those things. It wants to be, at the top of the world with all of the precious things. That's the aim and that's the goal of this church. And also for the praise of the world do they destroy the saints of the Most High and bring them down into captivity. So this church wants to be praised for destroying the people of the Most High. But with that praise of these other nations comes a covenant with the devil. If these different countries want, if they want the riches of this world, if they want to, pretty much move in this world, they have to make a covenant with this church, which is pretty much synonymous with making a covenant with the devil. But see, as they make these covenants and they get these perks, when we do awaken, as we have now at the end, you see how few of these countries and few of these people have embraced the truth. You have the ones that the Most High has awakened. But as you see, the vast majority of people, have not embraced this truth. Now we're going to continue here. This is really important. We're going to skip up here to 1 Nephi chapter 13. And this lets you know something right here. And 2nd Esdras 14 was talking about how certain amount of books the Most High allows the Gentile nations to spread out all over to anybody that wants them, to the worthy and unworthy. This lets you know that it first happened. This spreading of this word was after the Gentiles got our books, manipulated the books. Then they spread them to the 3 parts of the world that they actually inhabited first. After that, then they brought those tainted books over the great waters to the 4th part, which I'm sure was a shock to them, because when they brought their contaminated books that they had their hands all over, then all of a sudden they got over here And they actually had the pure books, the pure writings that had not been tampered with by the Gentiles. So this, I'm sure, created a huge enigma for the Gentiles. They got over here, and these people knew more than they did, and their writings were pure. They had not been touched by the Gentiles. Let's read this real quick, how this happens here. We're going to look at 1 Nephi 13, and we're going to skip on up here to 26. Checking to see here, 26 through 29. And after they go forth by the hand of the 12 apostles of the Lamb, from the Jews unto the Gentiles, thou seest the formation of that great and abominable church. See, these are all the dealings of the church. These are all the things that the church has been doing, not these Gentile nations, but the church, which is most abominable above all other churches. For behold, they have taken away from the gospel of the Lamb many parts which are plain and most precious, and also many covenants of the Most High have they taken away. So this church is the one that's manipulating all this information. And all this have they done that they might pervert the right ways of the Most High, that they might blind the eyes and harden the hearts of the children of men. So they did this not only to, mess us up as a people, but it also messes it up for the Gentiles. Even if some of the Gentiles wanted to follow the Most High and follow the ways of the Most High and follow the people and support the people, they wouldn't know how to. They wouldn't really be able to, because a lot of the information was stolen and was manipulated. Okay. 28. Wherefore thou seest that after the book hath gone forth through the hands of the great and abominable church, that there are many plain and precious things taken away from the book, which is the book of the Lamb of the Most High. And after these plain and precious things were taken away, it goeth forth unto all nations of the Gentiles. So right there. So after they took away all the main things that they wanted to hide, the precious things were taken away from it. And then it went forth unto all the nations of the Gentiles. So first, all the nations of the Gentiles were over there. The three parts. Those were the nations of the Gentiles. So this church took out all this important information, set up the book the way they wanted to, and then distributed it to the three parts. Remember how the world was divided up into four parts, and they were not allowed to come over to the fourth part until we messed up and we broke our covenant with the Most High. So this is letting you know first that these books were all distributed over there first, which then goes back to that 2 Esdras 14 about how these ones that were, these first few, they're distributed everywhere. All right. So again, it says, and after it goeth forth unto all the nations of the Gentiles, yea, even across the many waters which thou hast seen with the Gentiles, which have gone forth out of captivity. So after they distributed to the three parts, they went over the ocean, came over here, and brought their Bible over here. Now you're starting to see why they had to get rid of all of the records that were over here, because many of these records were pure, and they were much more in depth and had much more clarity, and they had not had the Gentiles around to mess them up. So they had to hide the fact that that the Gentiles had already manipulated a lot of our scriptures over there. They had to hide that fact. So then they had to go ahead and burn everything over here, and then act like these people here had absolutely no understanding of absolutely anything, and that we needed them to come over here and bring civilization and Christianity and everything else. All right, that was the main part right there. Now you see how they first, got the books, distributed them over there, then brought them over here, got rid of the records that were here, and then used that as a justification for the destruction. All right. All right. So let's see here. So let's go. Now in Revelation 18, you're going to see how these nations have committed fornication with this church. So they had to make all these deals with this church. All right. So this has been going on for a very long time. It's been going on, it was going on before, after Cain, and after the flood, it started again with Nimrod. And then this fornication went down the line to every single nation that came into power. Now, if you look at Revelations 18:4, it's talking about us and the chosen Gentiles who have been awakened to separate ourselves from this church and from this system. It says, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. All right. Now, how do we know that that's these other kings and nations, these presidents have fornicated with this whore? Look at 9. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her, she shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. Now remember, now we saw how all the things that this church wanted, and it was totally talking about that right there, and how the people are going to be lamenting and all upset because they're not going to be able to come over here and steal all the resources like they were able to do before. Okay, so if you keep on reading on down, it gives you all the examples of all the things that this church was taking and in league with these other nations. So, and what we're going to see right now is we're going to get into one of these books here. This one, A Woman Rides the Beast by Dave Hunt, the Roman Catholic Church and the Last Days. What's amazing is once you start to get into some of these other books, you'll start to realize that they do all the research. They got all this information. It's just now that we've been awakened, we can now go into these books and get this information and put the puzzle back together. Many of these so-called Christian writers have good information, but then they twist it, and they always try to make it sound like somehow they're being oppressed. Like the Catholic Church is something, just as an entity, it's way different than them, and how they're the true church, and the Catholic Church is not the right church, and the Baptist Church isn't the right church, and the all these different Episcopalians, all these they're all wrong. Baptists are all wrong. Okay. But this information we're going to get into right now, you're going to see some pretty crazy stuff. The chapter is called The Unholy Alliance. And there's a whole lot of information that's going to show you how this church went ahead and made covenants with or agreements with these nations. And like you said, as you start to see how these people made these agreements with this church, then they weren't able to, get away from those agreements anymore. And they were just stuck, and whatever's going to happen in the future is going to happen, and they don't have any recourse. They can't walk away from the devil after they've already, taken the bag and made that commitment. Let's see what to look at first. Got some clarification on something here that I had always kind of thought about. Let me read it real quick. It goes in 1266. Clement IV gave this function to Charles of Anjou, who founded the University of Rome. The papacy continued to be at the heart of almost every political intrigue, and its armies were allied with the forces of many a king in the continual wars that plagued Europe. So the church and these kings were always aligned. They were always together. Okay, they were always working together. Now, I always thought about it was kind of crazy because I have the Dogs of the Conquest book, and I read it quite a few times about how the Archbishop was the one who got all the ships ready and all of the people ready for when they were getting ready to come on their second voyage over here with the Native Americans. And I never understood, why would the king and queen allow the priests to be the one to dictate who gets to go and what they're going to bring. And he was the one who was putting all the dogs on the ships and all these mercenaries and all these weapons. The priests were in charge of that. And I'm like, that never made any sense to me. But now when I realize what these unholy alliances and what the church wanted, and then what the countries wanted, I said, it starts to make so much more sense. Check out this part right here. Next paragraph. In the New World, the church was the partner of the Spanish conquistadors and of the Portuguese in Africa. Recently, Native American activists called on the Pope, John Paul II, to formally revoke a papal bull Inter Cetera, issued in 1493, which declared that barbarous nations discovered and yet, okay, to be discovered, should be subjugated to the Catholic faith in order to propagate the Christian empire. Examples of fornication with the kings of the earth from ancient history could be multiplied, but we need to move on to modern times. See, he only gave us one little paragraph of what they did to the Native Americans. It's like all this death and destructions of hundreds and hundreds of millions of people and relegated to one paragraph. That there alone should give you a little hint. These guys sit here and talk all this garbage about the Catholic Church, but on their largest genocide, they all agree not to really talk about it. I'm just going to give you a little paragraph about it, and then let's just move on. So we're going to skip from 1266. We're going to skip through all of the death and destruction that this church was doing in league with these countries, and we're just going to pretty much just condense that down to one paragraph and skip right on up to 1929. If they were really serious about exposing some of the horrors of this church and some of their actions, wouldn't it make sense to actually expound on this actual point? You pretty much write a whole book on just this one point alone. But he just pretty much just, oh yeah, there's this little thing like a papal bull. Yeah, it was in 1493. Yeah, but we don't want to talk about that too much. Just go ahead and go to the next thing. Let's just skip on up here to 1929. You skip up almost 700 years and not talk about all the death and destruction that these countries and this church did right here. See, it's not always what they say. It's what they skip, and it's what they don't talk about. They're all in league with not talking about what happened to the Native Americans. You see, and you got to look at what's not talked about, what's ignored. When I was first doing videos a long time ago, I noticed that many camps and many groups of people were always arguing about every little thing. It's the name is Ahia, the name is Yahweh. The Sabbath is this day. I follow this calendar. I would see like a lot of camps on the groups. They would always fight and argue over, the moon and when is the feast day, and when they would argue about every little minute kind of things. Oh, I believe in one man, one woman. I believe in polygamy. All these different doctrines. But one thing that they all agreed on was no other books. They would argue about every other little thing, but one thing, I'd read like Enoch or something like that, and what was crazy was all these different groups at one time are all no other books, don't read any other books, don't read any other books, it was just kind of weird, because it's like you guys don't agree on absolutely anything, but you all agree on not reading any other books. So that kind of just gave me a little hint right there that, it's not what they say, it's what they don't say. It's not what they allow, it's sometimes what they don't allow. And this here, it's not about what the guy was talking about. It's about the fact that he just pretty much condensed the hundreds of millions of deaths of our people into one paragraph and quickly changed subjects. And that's all that you guys know a little something too. Now let's continue down. I'm going to talk about this 1929 Concordat with Mussolini. Okay. It says, we have already referred to the fact that in 1870, the independence of Italy was declared, and what remained of the Papal States was absorbed by the new United Nation. We have also noted that the Italian people voted overwhelmingly against the Pope's rule and for the new independence. The temporal powers of the popes were ended, including their prestige and alliances with earthly regimes. The Pope's civil authority was limited to the Vatican, where they remained in self-imposed exile for nearly 60 years until, in 1929, Mussolini and Pope Pius XI signed the Lateran Treaty. This Concordat made Roman Catholicism once again, by national law, the sole religion of Italy. Neither Peter nor Paul, and surely not Christ, would ever have entered into such an arrangement with any government, let alone with a fascist dictatorship. The Vatican, which claimed to be the true and only church, the bride of the Christ, who said his kingdom was not of this world, was acknowledged once again as a sovereign state with the status of a secular nation able to send and receive political ambassadors. For having seized the papal territories in 1870, Italy paid to the Holy See 750 million lire in cash and 1 billion lire in state bonds. Some of these funds would be used to start the Vatican Bank, now infamous for its corruption. Some would end up in rather strange investments for Holy Mother Church, such as an Italian firearms factory and a Canadian pharmaceutical company that manufactured contraceptives. There is no doubt that the Roman Catholic Church put Mussolini in power. Now check this out. In order to obtain the Lateran Treaty, the Pope required Catholics to withdraw from participation in politics. Many had been socialists, actively opposing Mussolini and his fascist party, and gave the church's backing to the Il Duce. Okay, the Pope made public statements so strongly in support of Mussolini. Mussolini is the man sent by Providence, that Catholics had no choice but to support the aspiring fascist dictator. Without the help of Mussolini, without that help, Mussolini would not have been voted in, and history might have been much different. Okay? So, as you can see now, they made an agreement, a covenant, right here. They were going to get all this money, all their prestige back, and get their place back as the sole church. In turn, they were going to help Mussolini get elected. So as you can see how they work hand in hand. It was like the state and the churches was working together. And they were both like, and it talks about this quite a bit in these books, about how they're both like fascist setups. You know, the government was, pretty much like run like a dictatorship, but so was the church. And if they were the perfect companions for one another. Okay. Let me see here. Let me continue now. Let me see what I want to get to next. Yeah, this is another good one right now. I'm going to read a little bit about the Dogs of the Conquest a little bit later. I actually have pictures of that, so we can look at that too. Let me take a look down here. The 1933 Concordat with Hitler. One of the key figures in negotiating the 1929 Concordat with Mussolini was Solicitor Francesco Pacelli, brother of Cardinal Eugenio Pacelli, who later became Pope Pius XII. The latter, as the Vatican Secretary of State, would play a key role in negotiating the lucrative, for the church, 1933 Concordat with Hitler. One of the benefits of the Concordat was the hundreds of millions of dollars that would flow to the Roman Catholic Church through the Kirchensteuer church tax throughout the entire war. In return, Pius XII would never excommunicate Hitler from the Catholic Church, nor would he raise his voice to protest the slaughter of 6 million Jews. We're not even going to get in that tonight. Okay? So, as you can see right there, I'm going to give you some money, and you're going to, not excommunicate me, and you're not going to say anything negative about me. Again, now you go back to that Revelation 18 and 9 about the kings of the earth are lamenting because they've been hand in hand with this church the entire time, which has been pretty crazy stuff right here. Hold on. Let me read that part right there at the bottom. The next paragraph. Leading Catholic prelates and theologians were ecstatic at the signing of the 1933 Concordat. Catholic theologian Michael Schmass wrote in praise of the authoritarianism of the Nazi regime and compared it to that of the church. The strong emphasis on authority in the new government is something essentially familiar to Catholics. It is a counterpart on the natural level to the church's authority in the supernatural sphere. Nowhere is the value and meaning of authority so conspicuous as in our Holy Catholic Church. Of course, that was true. The papacy had for centuries worked in close partnership with autocratic kings and emperors in the suppression of basic human rights. Once this information starts to come out, it just doesn't even make any sense how anyone could be um, wrapped up in these churches. Only way that you can do that is if you're pretty much blind and oblivious to history and blind and oblivious to all the things that these churches are responsible for. And I'm not just saying the Catholic Church, because it's these Christian churches too, because they know, but they still follow much of the Catholic doctrine. If you're still doing Christmas, if you're still doing Easter, if you're still doing Sunday worship, if you're still doing white Jesus, you, my friend, are a Catholic. Plain and simple. You can sit there and say, well, we don't worship saints. Who cares? You do many of the things that they do. They allow you to do different things, but you're still doing 80 books only, or 66 books. That's Catholicism. That's what they've approved. And as you now go back to Second Esdras, when it says, I'm going to give you the first group of books, publish them openly, let everyone read them. And I'm going to, and they first went ahead and distributed those to all the Gentile nations. So that's what they were doing over there. So they're the ones that brought those 80 books over here. So if you are now pushing the 80 books or 66 books, you are pushing what the Gentiles pushed over there in the 3 parts. If you are not open to looking at the records, that's why you have to make a total switch. You have to make a total line here. We got Gentiles when they had control of the church and what they did. That wasn't stuff that we were doing. That's what they did. They're the ones that came up with the 80 books or 66. They're the ones that brought that mess over here. Those are the ones that actually pushed that on our people over here. So if you're one of those ones who's 80 only, that's it. That's what the canon is. That's what the canon says. You, my friend, are a Catholic. Because I don't remember anything about the Most High saying we need to go through the canonization process in order to pick which books are good and are not good. I haven't seen anyone bring any of that information. It has not brought any proof that we can only read 80 books that the Most High approved. And if you're pushing that, you're a Catholic. This is where it gets really interesting. People always talking about how, America's Babylon, America's Babylon, America's this, America's that. America can't do anything without the approval of the church. If you really think that they're running things, you're fooling yourself. This guy's going to show you right here who's been running things for the last 2,000 years. This part here is, let me see here. Let me read a little bit of 224. Let me get to my book here real fast about what's going on here. They're trying to get rid of the Soviets. And who do you think was the one that was really instrumental in getting rid of the Soviet Union? Everyone always talks about America and everything else. Everyone's always talking, America, and Ronald Reagan. Well, let's see who was actually the ones who was given all the information. Let's see who was the one that was actually the one that was given all the integral information and everything else. You would think it must have been the Americans and their spies, and Israel and their spies, because they're the ones that are always put up at the top. Like they're the ones that have the best spy programs and, and the best weapons and the best this and the best that. I'll let you see right here. Let's see here. I'm going to read a little bit of 224 first. It's talking about bringing down the Soviet Union. It goes, and allies, they became in one of the most amazing exploits in history. It brought down the Berlin Wall, ended the Cold War, and completely unraveled Soviet communism. It was a story of intrigue and cooperation between the CIA and the apparently even more effective agents of the Vatican. Reagan and John Paul II, both survivors of assassination attempts, shared a unity of spiritual view and a unity of vision on the Soviet Empire, that right or correctness would ultimately prevail in the divine plan. A 5-part strategy emerged during the first half of 1982 that was aimed at bringing about the collapse of the Soviet economy, fraying the ties that bound the USSR to its client states. Okay, now we're at the top here. And the Warsaw Pact, and forcing reform inside the Soviet Empire. In the outworking of the plan, former Secretary of State Alexander Haig acknowledged that, check this out, The Vatican's information was absolutely better and quicker than ours in every respect. The Vatican liaison to the White House, Archbishop Pio Laghi, kept reminding American officials, listen to the Holy Father. We have 2,000 years' experience of this. That is huge information right there. This guy's saying, listen to the Holy Father. We have 2,000 years experience of this. They have 2,000 years of experience of what? Bringing down nations. 2,000 years of experience of, espionage, manipulating events, bringing the things that they want to see happen to fruition. Now you got to understand, these people they're not just dealing with it just in the regular, physical realm. They're dealing with demons. They're dealing with spirits. So of course they're going to have information that others aren't going to have. They're going to be vastly superior. So you don't think that these people have this information now? You don't think that they're still helping the United States now? This is 1982. You think all of a sudden, you want to know what? They still have liaisons right now, today. They still work together today. Again, the Vatican's information was absolutely better and quicker than ours in every respect. Well, I thought America was the best at everything. How is that possible that the church would have more information than the United States? That doesn't make any sense. Well, yeah, they said that's why. Then they want everybody to think that it's all these other nations that are doing everything. But they're admitting right here, they're telling you right now that the Vatican's information was way better. And that's what the guy said right here. He's telling you, hey, you know who we are? You know who we are. You need to listen to us. We've been doing this for 2,000 years. You guys are the new kids on the block. We've been running things for over 2,000 years. Now you're going back to the old Roman, the legs of the statue. They're letting you know they do. They've been around. They've been doing this. This is nothing new for us. And if you want information, if you want to know how to do this, you need to get with us. That's pretty much what he's saying right here. When he says we have over 2,000 years of experience of this, you're letting you know. They're the ones that are running things. And then check the next paragraph out. That the Pope played a key role. Both Reagan and later Gorbachev frankly admitted. A major newspaper article coming out 3 weeks after the Times story reported Pope John Paul II played a major political role in the collapse of communism in Eastern Europe, said Mikhail Gorbachev, former leader of the Soviet Union. Gorbachev predicted that the Pope will continue to play a great political role in the current, very delicate transition taking place in Europe. You betcha. And that's exactly it. So this lets you know that they have been the ones that have been running everything. That guy's admitting it right here. They've been doing it for over 2,000 years. And if anybody wants anything, they have to go to the church. That's why all of our presidents have to go over and meet with the Pope. Because they're the ones with all the information. They're the ones that know where all the bodies are hidden. And they're the ones that are running the world. Kind of let you know, a sister shared this book with me. And there was a really key part here I wanted to let you guys know, because these things, these spirits and these demons, I said, they've been here before. These people, you've been here before. And all these events are just rehashes of old events. And this was actually something that was really interesting. So I wanted to share with you. I said, that's why they were talking about how they've done this for 2,000 years. Yes. And we've been coming back and doing this thing over and over again. And what you saw happening over here in the United States, in the Americas, and someone coveting the land, and someone having to manipulate the situation in order to get it. You're going to see that right here. This happened before. And it's crazy because even the names are the same. Most I've shown you that, these things that are happening have happened before. And the names of some of the people are still The names of the players are still the same, just in a different language. Check this out. In 1 Kings 21, we find the story of a man named Naboth. He was a humble man of the Most High who owned a vineyard that had been passed down for generations in his family. Unfortunately for Naboth, it was inconveniently situated adjacent to the palace. King Ahab wanted to expand his garden, so he sought to purchase the land. However, Naboth refused to sell the land, which was the family inheritance. King Ahab pouted that he was not getting what he wanted. So Queen Jezebel fabricated evidence against Naboth for blasphemy and probably had him stoned to death. Naboth's land was then confiscated for the evil king and queen. So same kinds of things. Someone wants our land. Someone wants, our resources. So they, just make up false charges in order to get access to it. Same thing. These people here in the Americas, they're savages, and they need us to come over here and show them how to live. So we're actually, doing them a favor. That's what they would tell themselves before. Check this out. Interesting enough, an amazing parallel can be seen centuries later in Taino Indian history. The land and resources that were an inheritance to my Taino people for over 2,000 years was suddenly coveted by one of the most powerful world leaders, Queen Isabella of Spain. Their scout, Columbus, had reported back to Spain that gold medallions were worn by the elite of our Taino society. Gold fever struck. The monarchy wanted gold-filled land at any cost. Nothing and nobody would stand in the way of Spain getting it. Lives would be lost, and it did not matter to the Spanish monarchy the price innocent lives paid to get it. Hold on real fast. I didn't take the pictures of the next part. And of course, I didn't bring the book. Okay, main point. I don't have the book on me. Do I have the book? Let me see here. Yes, I do. Let me grab it. What pages of this? Okay. Okay, I'm going to continue reading the next page. In the biblical story of Naboth, the queen's name is Jezebel. However, it is important to note that the letter J is new to the English language, having been invented roughly 600 years ago. Its origins typically lie with an I or a Y for Jezebel. In the anglicized transliteration of the Hebrew word Isabel, which is ironically the same as the Latinized name Isabella, bride and King Ferdinand of Spain. So we got Isabel, okay, Isabel for Jezebel, and you got Isabella for the bride of King of Ferdinand. So it's like you got the same person, the Isabel or Jezebel and Isabella, same names, same things. The Queen of Spain, instead of Isabella, could easily be known also as Isabel, which would be the same thing as Jezebel. Just letting you know that these things are just happening again and again and again. The church wants money, wants the finer things of life. And they have the devil to sit there and give them the means to get it. And this church has been using the other nations, as like a front man to get the things that they want. And we have a book from Dogs of the Conquest. We have this part right here that I said before. I've read a few times, and I just never really understood why the king and queen would allow the archdeacon to be the one to get everything set up for the second voyage to the New World with Columbus. But check this out. The supplies and the equipment of the fleet, however, were left by the sovereigns to the discretion of their personal chaplain, the shrewd archdeacon of Seville, Juan Rodriguez de Fonseca. This predates a perception of the true purpose of the venture and his knowledge of the Spanish character made him keenly aware that the Renaissance Crusaders would find dogs indispensable in a pagan world. So what you got to see right there is the prelate's perception of the true purpose of the venture and his knowledge of the Spanish character. Okay, so it wasn't, he knew this, the main mission was what the church wanted. And what was the church after? Money and gold, and to enslave the Most High's chosen people. But that goes back to that first Nephi, to the destruction of the saints of the Most High, putting them in slavery. That was the main mission. Getting gold, getting silver, getting resources. That was the main idea for the church. So therefore, he was going to set up this whole armada with that purpose in mind. It says the monarch specified a kind and loving treatment of the Indians on Columbus's second voyage and their speedy conversion to Christianity. At the same time, however, they stressed the settlement of the land, the organization of trade centers, and a careful garnering of material resources. Fonseca was aware that to carry out the second capitulation successfully, some compromise had to be made between desire for material gain and evangelical piety. Such profits as the crown expected, he knew, would have to be obtained eventually by means of enforced labor and human bondage. He surmised that though the Indians might be as a Pacific, as Columbus had described them, they would not adjust to manual labor without coercion. In consequence, he made certain that when Columbus's splendid fleet sailed in September 1493, it was adequately equipped with men, arms, and a pack of 20 purebred mastiffs and greyhounds. So like I said, the countries and the church, hand in hand. But what the church wanted was what the main idea of what was going to be going on. They wanted money. They wanted the destruction of the Hebrews. They wanted to steal all their stuff. Okay? Let's see here. Same spirits. All right, got that. Make sure I'm getting everything. We're going to take a look real quick at a little bit of the doctrines and covenants that Elder Ayul was talking about last night. This book, I kind of looked at it before a little bit. This Doctrines and Covenants, I wouldn't really get into it that much because it's a lot of stuff that it'll confuse you. And a lot of it's like, well, John Smith said this. John Smith said that. So a lot of stuff I don't really waste my time with. I said, but this section was actually pretty good because it just discusses about how the Gentiles have taken our records, manipulated them, and then when when John Smith here wanted to fix it, they said, if you try to change anything, then you're the one that's going off. And that's exactly what's happened in this truth. Let me read a couple of verses. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's actually quite a bit. And that could be like another video if I wanted to do that later on. But right now, I'm just going to read a little bit here. Let me get there. Doctrines and Covenants 10. We're going to read first verses 7 and 8. And for this cause I said that he is a wicked man, for he has sought to take away the things wherewith you have been entrusted, and he also has sought to destroy your gift. And because you have delivered the writings into his hands, behold, wicked men have taken them from you. So some wicked men are definitely going to get a hold of our writings. That's exactly what had happened in the past. Okay, over there in the so-called Middle East, this abominable church got their hands on our writings and changed them up. Let's go up to 11 and 13. And behold, I say unto you that because they have altered the words, they read contrary from that which you translated and caused to be written. And on this wise, the devil has sought to lay a cunning plan, that he may destroy this work. For he hath put into their hearts to do this, that by lying they may say they have caught you and the words which you have pretended to translate. Yeah, so they, after they made all these changes, if we were to try to change it back, they would say that we were lying or that we were making stuff up. The stuff that's going on in this section of the book is what has happened over there in the so-called Middle East. And even today, it's still happening. As we start to bring up discrepancies and things that don't fit with just what's in the Bible, it's all of a sudden you're the issue, you're the problem. When I talked about how it talks about how Moses did not write the first 5 books of the Bible, like not by himself anyways. Some people that lost their minds. Now, see, I'm not the one who propagated the lie that Moses wrote all first 5 books of the Bible. But if I'm the one who brings up the fact that there's information that says that he didn't write it, I'm the one that gets attacked. You see how they set this up. If I say, hey, I'm going to read these other books, Enoch should be, part of the stuff that you read, Jasher. What do they say? Oh, no, you can't do that. We were already given these books, and that's all that there is. And then you get attacked for bringing other information. This is exactly what's going on here in this story. They make changes after they made the changes and then present that to you or present to the nation or to all the people. That's all that they want. And if we try to bring them the truth, they get upset and say that we're making things up. All the while it was the devil and his church that manipulated everything and changed everything. So now that we know that myself and Elder Ayul are bringing the Book of Mormon back to the people, it's, oh my God, I can't believe you're reading that book. That's the white man's book. Really? Oh yeah, that's not part of the scriptures. You're crazy. Really? Okay. Almost my whole life, I heard that the Bible was the white man's book. I said, and I said, there's only 80 books. I said, prove where the Most High only gave us 80 books. Crickets. Nothing. I said, okay, well, prove that Moses wrote the first 5 books. Crickets. Nothing. Other than the fact there might be a couple of verses that say that. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to say it in the Bible. I said, but because that's the way it was set up. So that you won't look for all the other books that were actually written before Moses. It's always pretty much just kill the messenger. Don't get upset at the one who changed everything, but kill the one who's trying to actually open your eyes and show you the truth. Let's read 23 about this cunning plan. I'm still reading from Doctrines and Covenants 10, and now I'm going to read 23. Let's see here. So I'm only reading a couple of the verses, and what I'll do is, like I said, I'll leave Elder Ayul's link in the description box, and you can check out his breakdown. He did a great job breaking it down, and it'll start around the 40-minute mark, and has actually did a really good job with that. So I don't need to actually go over that because he did a really good job with that. It says, and thus he has laid a cunning plan, thinking to destroy the work of the Most High. But I will require this at their hands, and it shall turn to their shame and condemnation in the day of judgment. They're going to be judged for touching the words of the Most High and changing all this information. They're going to have to pay for that because they're making as many people fall by the wayside because they have pretty much destroyed the path to the truth. Now, I said one more time here. Let's take a look at 1 Nephi 13. And let's look at this 29. And after these plain and precious things were taken away, it goeth forth unto all the nations of the Gentiles. And after it goeth forth unto all the nations of the Gentiles, yea, even across the many waters, which thou hast seen with the Gentiles, have gone forth out of the captivity. Okay? Let's see. Thou seest, let me see here, because of the many plain and precious things which have been taken out of the book, which were plain unto the understanding of the children of men, according to the plainness which is in the Lamb of God. Because of these things which are taken away out of the gospel of the Lamb, an exceedingly great many do stumble, yea, insomuch that Satan hath great power over them. And as you can see, Satan has great power over the world. I said, even you start looking at how, they commit fornication with all these different nations because they have manipulated the Bible. They have now made many people, bow down to Satan. And because he's manipulated the books, many people bow down to the wants and the needs of this abominable church. And now when the Most High raises up his people to try to tell them the truth, they attack the ones who are trying to bring them the truth. And they say that we're the ones that are changing the truth when the abominable church changed it a long time ago. And this was prophesied to happen. And this was actually happening over there also before it happened over here. This was Joseph Smith and Doctrines and Covenants talking about it, but these things happened also with the apostles. I've done videos on this before, and the book is from the Lost Scriptures book, and it's called what's this one called here? The letter of James the letter of Peter to James and its reception. Okay, let me see here. I'm trying to take a look here because it was just talking about how as these don't give. He pretty much says don't give any of our writings to the Gentiles because they're going to manipulate everything. Okay, I'm trying to find which part I want to read to you guys. Okay, here it is. It's if you have the book, it's page 192. All right. Yeah, they're pretty much saying that the law of Moses was done away with. That's what happens when the Gentiles got a hold of the books. They pretty much started changing everything. Okay, it says verse 5 here. Actually, we'll start at 3. For some from among the Gentiles have rejected my lawful preaching and have preferred a lawless and absurd doctrine of the man who is my enemy. So they took his words, and twist them. That's exactly what they've done right here. That's what it's talked about right here in Nephi. They did it over here with the southern kingdom, and then when it got over to the new lands over here, they did it with the northern kingdom's records as well. Okay, and it says, let's go to read on down. And indeed, some have attempted, whilst I am still alive, to distort my words by interpretations of many sorts, as if I taught the dissolution of the law. And although I was of this opinion, did not express it openly, but that may God forbid. For to do such a thing means to act contrary to the law of God, which was made known by Moses, and was confirmed by our Lord in its everlasting continuance. For he said, the heaven and the earth will pass away, but one jot or one tittle shall not pass away from the law. This he said, that everything might come to pass. But those persons who I know not how allege that they are at home in my thoughts, wish to expound the words which they have heard of me better than I myself who spoke them, to those whom they instruct. That they say that this is my opinion, to which indeed I never gave a thought. But if they falsely assert such a thing while I am still alive, how much more after my death will those of who come later venture to do so? So he's like, pretty much, these guys are saying, I said all these things about the law and this, that, which I never did. He goes, and if they're willing to do this while I'm alive, could you imagine what they're going to do after I die? That's always been the plan of the devil, to get a hold of our records, to manipulate them, then to put them out there. And then once we try to come back and bring the truth, we'll get attacked for that because people will have these lies so ingrained in their minds that they won't believe anything. And that's exactly what has happened. Exactly the same thing. Let me read a little bit more of this Doctrines and Covenants book. I'm going to skip up to verse 39. Actually, no, I'm going to stop on that right there. I'm not going to continue on that. Okay. So, like I said, we just pretty much went through here and showed you how they admitted here. One of the liaisons, I think it was another priest, was saying that the Catholic Church has been manipulating things and running things from behind the scenes, and they're damn good at it for over 2,000 years. That they got our books, they've changed it, just like I talked about was going to be happening in Nephi. Then they're going to roll that new Bible out, and they're going to they're going to spread that all over the place to the 3 parts of the Gentile nations. Then after they did that, they went ahead and brought that over here to the new world. They went ahead and burned all of our records, or hid many of them, much of the records themselves, because they had to pretty much have their whole setup of the people here didn't know anything and needed to be taught by them. So they had to bring that abominable books that they have set up over here. And even now at the end, we got some people from our own people who are still pushing this abominable book that was approved by their church. The Bible definitely has, I shouldn't say abominable book, I should say an incomplete book that was pushed by the abominable church. Let me clarify that. The Bible is a great book, But like I said, it's incomplete. And that was a book that the abominable church picked and chose and set up the way they wanted to in order to be able to manipulate our people and the other nations. Because the Bible that they had gave us only tells us half the story, only tells us parts of the story. And it's just now the Most High is bringing other information in order to give us much more clarity. So yeah, no, I love the scriptures. The scriptures definitely are very important, but they're a gateway to finding the rest of our records. And the Most High said that's exactly what he was going to do. What we have to understand is that the Most High always deals with, many times, I shouldn't say always, many times, the second is greater than the first. So he allowed books to come out first. He allowed the other nations to get a hold of our books, change them up, and bring that out and roll that out. But he knew that eventually at the end, he was going to bring more books out and bring more clarification. They were going to bring more clarification to the scriptures. The Bible and the Book of Mormon and many other historical books all work hand in hand in order to finish the story. The Bible only gives us the majority or predominantly the southern kingdom's information. The Book of Mormon now brings the northern information together. And now we have a much better understanding of the Father through bringing together all of the information. And we live in beautiful times right now because the Most High has given us much clarification. So again, the abominable church was responsible for putting together our Bible right now. And the Most High waited till the end in order to give clarification with these other books. So we have a much better understanding of the Bible, and we have much more understanding of the Book of Mormon, and now we can read all these other books and get much more understanding. All praises to the Most High, Yahweh. Acknowledgement to the earthly mother, who is wisdom, who is the Holy Spirit. Acknowledgement to Yahweh Shai. Shalom.